One of the NFL's very best cornerbacks was released earlier, and today I want to talk about if the Las Vegas Raiders should realistically consider this guy. Given that our secondary is not really something that really excites you, and I shouldn't say that because it is a little unknown at this point, but should the Las Vegas Raiders target a guy like Jaire Alexander, a guy who the Green Bay Packers just released? Ian Rappaport put this out there, that the Packers are releasing star cornerback Jaire Alexander today, sources say. Now, the Packers did try to trade Alexander, and obviously, if you put it out there that a player does not want to be on your team, and then you're trying to trade that guy, it's not going to really work out. Most teams are not going to be willing to give up any sort of compensation for those type of players, especially given Alexander is not, he's not a guy that's on a rookie contract looking for his very first contract. This guy's already been in the NFL for 6 to 7 seasons. But regardless of that, this is a top 5 corner, and some people think he's even the very, very, very best corner in the NFL. And I want to talk about if the Raiders should realistically consider this guy. I look at what the Raiders have right now on this roster. I look at some of the cornerbacks that we have when it comes to the depth chart. Right now, Darian Porter, a third-round pick for the Raiders, is the expected starter going into this season. Eric Stokes, who played with Alexander over the past couple of seasons, is also expected to start for the Raiders. And those are your 2 cornerbacks. Now, keep in mind, Jaire Alexander, to me, is better than both of those guys. Obviously, with Porter, it's a little unknown if he'll end up being a star corner. So never say never what ends up happening. But generally speaking, Alexander's one of those guys that has proven himself. And this isn't a guy that's like scheme specific, right? Like back when Richard Sherman played, for example, with the Seahawks, Sherman was a scheme specific guy, right? He was a cover 3 corner. You put him in a man-to-man scheme or a heavy man scheme specifically, he might not have the same type of success. Alexander's not that type of corner. This guy can go from man-to-man to cover 3 to heavy zone. This guy can play multiple schemes. He is very, very talented, and he's a really good tackler as well. And I think if you're the Las Vegas Raiders, you got to realistically consider bringing in a guy like Alexander. Yes, we don't really know what Darian Porter's going to end up being. Eric Stokes could get that career turned around potentially, but do keep in mind, Alexander was technically ahead of Eric Stokes, and even more so than that, Stokes, for the past 2 years, hasn't played the same amount of snaps he played in his first 2 seasons. The Raiders secondary right now, it's really unknown at this point. Even then, Corian Bennett's the guy that I would be, kind of in on, hey, there's, this guy's kind of unknown. In terms of that year 3 development, it's kind of a new scheme and system, but he's shown flashes. Can he adjust to this scheme and system? What's the upside, right? It's kind of unknown at this point with Bennett. Is he a top 5 corner or is he not, right? And of course, he's working with the Chews right now. Obviously, it's early on in the process, but then we have multiple other cornerbacks. Lonnie Johnson Jr. is expected to start for the Raiders inside the slot right now. Right, so if Lonnie Johnson starts for the Raiders, is that a guy that's a good corner? Is he a guy that over the course of the season can continue to have success? Or, are the Raiders going to struggle in that secondary? And there's other guys that we don't really know, right? Like Cameron Richardson, for example. What is that guy going to eventually turn into? He's a 4th-round pick just this past season. You look at guys like John Humphrey, right? A UDFA, Mello Dotson, another UDFA, right? Can these guys actually have success for the Raiders? And I think we're at that point right now. We don't really know, right? Darnay Holmes is another guy that has been getting some first-team reps. But are these guys getting first-team reps because they're good or because the Raiders just don't have the type of talent in the secondary? And that brings you back to a guy like Jaire Alexander, right? This guy is a legit cornerback. And the thing is at this point, if you're the Las Vegas Raiders, you don't have to trade for him. You're not giving up a 3rd or a 4th-round pick. You're basically getting this guy for free. And another thing to kind of keep in mind is, teams weren't trying to get him just because of the hey, we got to give up a pick. It was also the fact that teams didn't really want his contract, given the fact that he's always, he's kind of on the injury-prone side. And some people will say, hey, the Raiders didn't want Nate Hobbs because he kind of fit that same mold, right? He was always kind of hurt. And with that, there's no way John Spytek would also go and get a guy like Alexander, given he also kind of has that injury history as well. And that definitely makes sense, and I can 100% agree with not targeting a guy that historically has been injury prone, right? And another thing to kind of keep in mind is, the Raiders would rather take a guy, if he's the best cornerback, but he's always hurt, as a guy that's maybe not as good, but he's 100% healthy, 17 games a season, they would go with that guy. And we're seeing that right now with the guy like Corey Bennett, who really hasn't proven to be fully healthy. Yeah, the upside is kind of unknown with Bennett, but the Raiders would rather go with guys that are healthy, right? And I think that's kind of where we're at right now with the Raiders. Would I love to bring in a guy like Alexander? Absolutely. More than that, Jalen Ramsey is also kind of out there. He's another guy that I would 100% bring in. Now, I don't think Jalen Ramsey has been released. He's obviously still with the Miami Dolphins. I don't know if the Dolphins are going to be able to like rework the contract and potentially bring him back and keep him, or if he's going to end up getting traded. There was a June 1st deadline that the Dolphins had to potentially move off of him. And we're past June 1st at this point, right? So I'm not really sure how that situation's kind of going. But imagine the Raiders bringing in both Alexander and Jalen Ramsey. And I know it's probably unrealistic to do, but just imagine giving these guys like 1 year. Like imagine giving Alexander like a 2-year contract where 1 year is fully guaranteed with the second year like a team option, right? Where maybe it guarantees on June 1st or whatever. And then you trade for Jalen Ramsey. Sure, it might cost you a 3rd-round pick, but those two guys are still good football players, right? And that takes the defense to a whole nother level. And we have the salary cap, right? It's not like we don't have cap space. The Raiders have cap space. Now, of course, you do have to figure out where you're going to invest those dollars. That's 100% understandable. But the Raiders do got to fix up that defense and really understand that going into this season, you know, if you don't have the players on that defense, you're not going to have success. I do think scheme and system is by far the most important part of having success, but you got to have players that are also good football players. And yes, there's a bunch of unknown guys, a bunch of guys that have proven themselves, but the second and third levels of the defense for the Raiders, it's just too unknown at this point. Even our linebackers like Devin White and Landon Roberts, to me, both guys are basically past their prime at this point. Right. And I know some people are going to say, hey, Devin White's only like 27. There's no way he's past his prime. Devin White came into the league when he was like 19, 20 years old. The guy's played like 6, 7 years already. The guy has slowed down. Devin White's not the same. You know, I think he ran like a 4.4 40-yard dash or something crazy when he came out. And he was super fast, super explosive. He's not that guy anymore, right? He has, from an athletic profile, he has taken a step back, right? He still might be athletic, but Devin White's not the same type of linebacker, and that's just me being 100% realistic. Landon Roberts, right now the reports are is he looks good, and he's probably going to be the guy that's going to end up starting 100% of snaps for the Raiders. But I just feel like the Raiders got to kind of figure it out. And there was another report that came out earlier that linebacker Jermaine Pratt was also released. Pratt ranked in the top 10 according to Tom Pelissero in the NFL last season in tackles and was a team captain. Now he hits the open market. Now, Pratt is obviously on the older side, but he's also a very, very good linebacker as well. And again, just kind of talking about the Raiders defense and figuring it out, you know, could the Raiders bring in a linebacker, a guy like Pratt, right? And it's an interesting question because we do have to be realistic. This team does have to get better in the second and third levels of the defense. Now, I will say this, you know, Landon Roberts, Devin White, Jermaine Pratt, they're all the same type of veteran player. Now, I do think Pratt might be better than the other two guys, but it's the same type of player, right, generally speaking. And I do think the best thing the Raiders could do is get younger within the linebacking group. You do bring in guys like Cody Lindenberg this season. You bring in Tommy Eichenberg last season. You do want to see those guys develop and be the next Jermaine Pratt, right? Obviously, I think that's the best case scenario. But, you know, just generally speaking, you know, Tommy Eichenberg didn't really show a whole lot last season. Honestly, Amari Gainer looked so much better than him. And maybe Gainer is the next Pratt, right? We'll find out, right? Amari Gainer is the one guy I'm very, very excited about. But I do think the Raiders do have to continue to add and continue to get better. I understand wanting to save the salary cap and carry it into next season because, you know, you do have to keep in mind, you know, Maxx Crosby's contract goes up a little bit every year. Christian Wilkins' contract goes up a little bit every year. Colton Miller wants a new contract, and if you do want to keep him around, his contract will be structured where it goes up every year. So even if you have $30-40 million in cap space, you can take that money and put it into next year. And I feel like for the Raiders, that's kind of what they plan to do, right? Maybe keep those cap dollars, carry it into next year. You'll have to make Brock Bowers one of the highest paid tight ends in 3 years. You'll have to make Ashton Jeanty, one of the highest paid running backs in 5 years. Yes, that's down the line, but you still are thinking about that stuff today, right? You're preparing salary cap wise today for those future investments, essentially. And then even a guy like Malcolm Koonce. You know, if Koonce is a top 10 edge player, which I think he can be, then you're going to have to pay him $25 million, right? So, again, I think for the Raiders, they're just trying to figure it out, the salary cap. But damn, how much better would the Raiders be with Jaire Alexander, Jalen Ramsey, even Jermaine Pratt? And Pratt does have connections to both Jacoby Myers and AJ Cole. I think they all played college football together, or they were at least teammates, right? I don't know if they all played at the same time and came out, but they were all teammates at some point. I do like Pratt. I still think he has a lot of good years left in his career. I want to switch focus. There's two things that I want to talk about. One being these center rankings. Some people actually have been asking me about this. I got at least 2 comments where people are like, hey, did you see the Pro Football Focus rankings where they rank their centers? You're always saying Jackson Powers-Johnson's one of the best, but these guys have him ranked as the 17th center. It's kind of crazy. So PFF obviously puts their ranking out. And I should just take a step back and also put this out there. This is not like Pro Football Focus that actually thinks this is who the 17 or this is who the 32 centers are ranked, right? Like the actual company, the owner of the company does not think this. This is actually just an article written by one person, Mason Cameron. This guy's writing this article, so keep in mind this is his thoughts. You know, not like what Pro Football Focus, the company, thinks. So just kind of keep that in mind. They have Creed Humphrey as their number 1 center. 100% can agree with that. But from there, it's just kind of crazy to me how Jackson Powers-Johnson is ranked below so many of these different guys. Because he's better than pretty much every single one of these guys, right? Tyler Linderbaum, number 2. I think he's a good center. Zach Frazier, I think he's a really good center as well. Eric McCoy is good. Drew Dalman's pretty good. Aaron Brewer is pretty good as well. Ryan Kelly, Jenkins, really, really solid. One of the better interior guys, although he was mostly a guard over the course of his career. Froholt out of Arizona, I think this was his first year playing center. He's actually really, really good as well. Tippmann was a first-round pick, hasn't really lived up to the hype in my opinion. Pochik, solid, but kind of reminds me of like Andre James, who gets pushed around a little bit. No way this guy's better than Jackson Powers. It's not even close. There's a completely different planet. And then another thing that I don't agree with, they have Cam Jurgens as the 13th ranked center. I mean, this right here just tells you don't know football. Right? Cam Jurgens, to me, if I'm doing a ranking, it's Creed Humphrey, Cam Jurgens. That's 1 and 2 because they've proven themselves. And look, cap dollars speak for themselves as well. The Eagles have made Cam Jurgens one of the highest paid centers in the NFL. I think his contract is actually the highest paid. The cap dollars speak for themselves. If Howie Roseman is making you the highest paid center, it's probably because you're the best center in the NFL, if not one of the top 2 or 3 guys. And Cam Jurgens is definitely that. The guy is a superstar center, in my opinion. But he has Powers-Johnson way down here at 17. I think this is just disrespectful as hell. So I want to read to you guys what this guy wrote. He's putting it out there. Although Jackson Powers-Johnson's rookie season netted mixed results, that came due in large part to splitting time between center and guard. However, when lined up at center, the first-year blocker looked rather solid, posting a 70.7 Pro Football Focus grade, a top 12 mark at the position. Without Andre James in the picture, Powers-Johnson projects as a Raiders starting center heading into 2025. So I guess his grade is higher if you only take the center snaps. 70.7 ranks in the top 12. I looked at these grades earlier. I'm pretty sure that ranks in like the top 5 or 6. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that is true. I believe that puts him in the top 5 or 6. So I guess his grade is higher, but it's crazy to me because I'm pretty sure Jackson Powers-Johnson and even Zach Frazier, I'm pretty sure these guys came out in the same class. The Steelers actually took Zach Frazier after the Raiders took Jackson Powers-Johnson. Now, here's the thing. Every Steelers fan wanted Jackson Powers-Johnson until the Raiders took him, and then they settled with Zach Frazier. But people were disappointed, right, that the Steelers ended up getting Frazier as opposed to Powers-Johnson. Now, Zach Frazier is a really, really, really good center as well. I think he came out of, I believe it was West Virginia, who has a really, really good offensive line coach. I forget the guy's name. Phenomenal offensive line coach. West Virginia produces some of the best college prospects coming out, right? Like this year, they had a guy that went on like the 2nd or 3rd round to guard that came out. I forget his name, but Frazier's solid, right? And I don't disagree with him being ranked in the top 5, but I just find it kind of crazy because if you're gonna do rankings the way Mason Cameron here is, do you guys think this guy watches tape of every single center in the NFL? And then do you guys think he watches, because he obviously has other rankings as well, right? Quarterbacks, running backs. Every position, there's like 10 positions right there. There's 32 players at every position. Some positions have 2, right? Like wide receivers, corners, linebackers have 2. That's like 600 players. There's no way this guy's watching 600 players to do these rankings, right? Luckily for you guys, man, I watch centers. I watch every single one of these centers, guards, tackles. I spend a big portion of my life watching offensive line tape. I am telling you guys, man, I'm not being Raider biased at all. Jackson Powers-Johnson is special. He is special, special, special. Like, he's the best offensive lineman I've ever watched. That is, generally speaking, he's one of the best that I've ever watched. Penei Sewell's probably the only other guy on that type of level. Recently, specifically, right? Because we have guys like Tyron Smith, Lane Johnson that are elite players. But like guys coming out of college that I've watched, like Penei Sewell, Jackson Powers-Johnson, and both guys are dominating. And I think this is kind of a crazy ranking. So again, if it's up to me, I'm putting Creed Humphrey at 1. I'll put Cam Jurgens at 2. Jackson Powers-Johnson to me is 3, right? And Jackson Powers-Johnson is probably going to be better than Cam Jurgens, and it'll probably be better than Creed Humphrey as well. Now, Creed Humphrey, his tape when he came out, he also did a lot of what Jackson Powers-Johnson used to do, right? Where he'd like physically toss people. Powers-Johnson might do it a little bit more than Humphrey, but like Humphrey was on that type of level, and he's been the number 1 center for like 5 years now. All right, so just think about that. That's the that's the trajectory that Jackson Powers-Johnson is kind of on, right? Again, to me, it's kind of crazy. Even then, like Tyler Linderbaum, I don't even think is that good of a center. He kind of gets beat up on, he gets pushed back a lot, in my opinion. And I don't agree with PFF grades. I think their grades are awful. Even Drew Dalman, he's good, but, the Falcons replaced Drew Dalman and had no issue bringing in a whole nother center. Like, he's a good player, but I think he was a guy that was part of the Atlanta Falcons scheme, not more so like he's just a great football player, right? And the Falcons have a great offensive line coach as well. That guy's just replacing players, right? Chris Lindstrom, right guard, one of the best right guards. That's because of the coach. They bring in a left guard in Matthew Bergeron. He's one of the best guards because of the coach, right? So Drew Dalman, I think, is a good football player, but is he like the 5th best center? I think is debatable. Another thing with these rankings, there's a guy that's way too low. Cooper Beebe's too low as well, but Lloyd Cushenberry at 20 is disrespectful. Lloyd Cushenberry is a top 10 center. There's just no way this guy's not, right? Graham Barton's a top 10 center. Of course, John Spytek drafted this guy as well. He was actually drafted before Powers-Johnson, though, which I don't agree with that, right? So John Spytek made the decision to say we're going to draft Graham Barton ahead of Jackson Powers-Johnson. I think that's a bad decision. So I don't know if it's true, but it is what it is. That's my thoughts on Jackson Powers-Johnson being ranked so low. I think it's disrespectful, but I do understand. This is one, right? It's a random writer, right? It's a random person putting this article out there. Let's wrap it up. There's actually one final report that I want to talk about. Someone actually tagged me on this on Instagram that former Raider cornerback Damon Arnette is getting a workout with the Houston Texans. It was, I forget the guy, Aaron Wilson, that put this report out. But Texans worked out the Roughnecks, which is a UFL team. Cornerback Damon Arnette, a former first-round pick of the Raiders. This report just came out today. I don't know when the workout happened. Probably happened yesterday. But Damon Arnette is trying to make his way back into the NFL. And I want to just kind of talk about this a little bit. I don't think my opinion is going to be the same of like every Raiders fan out there. But it is my opinion, and I do want to just say that. And I do hope Damon Arnette gets his chance back in the NFL. It sucks for the Raiders because we drafted this guy with the 19th overall pick, and he did not care at all about football. At all, right? He was the Raiders. He did not give a shit about playing football. In fact, this guy was so immature when he came out. Like, he got arrested multiple times. He didn't, he got caught with drugs. Like, this guy just did not care. he had videos that he put out where he literally did not care. And that was his time with the Raiders, and that's how most Raider fans remember this guy. But, you know, when I spent time at the Hula Bowl and just being around all these players, I realized that a lot of these guys, they're basically little kids, right? Like, they're basically like, and I know they're like 20, 21, 22, so technically they're adults, but just the mindset that a lot of these guys have, they're kids, essentially, right? And I think when Damon Arnette came to the Raiders, you know, this guy was taken care of. Ohio State, they take care of their players. They baby these guys. They treat them like kids, and he came out, and he wasn't ready for that transition. He's trying to turn it around, right? So I do hope he gets that opportunity. I hope he gets it figured out. Some people will say, hey, this guy just wants money. Maybe he ran out or whatever. I don't think that's the case. I'm pretty sure Damon Arnette has enough money even today where he can continue to live. You know, obviously he'd have to save going forward, but this guy has been putting in the work, right? He's been playing in the UFL for a couple of years now. He actually is having a pretty good season. He played in 8 games so far. He has 18 tackles, 2 tackles for losses. He has a pick 6 for 51 yards, and he has 5 pass breakups. So hopefully he figures it out. He gets that opportunity that he wants. And I do hope he, just stays on a positive track as he kind of goes forward. And I hope it works out for him. I really do hope that. Let me know what you guys think, man. What are you guys' thoughts on, should the Raiders go out there and bring some free agents in? Should we actually sign some players? Or should we just go forward with what we kind of have? And then same thing with Jackson Powers-Johnson. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Let me know in the comments below. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.